with an old tutorial. As you may know, I fucked up the recording of this tutorial the last time and you weren't able to see my parameters tab and I'm very sorry about that once again, and so I am finally finding the time to re-record it. I'm sorry I'm a little late. But yeah, there we go. I will talk about this kind of displacement, which is a little bit different than the usual displacements we are using. So we don't go with a regular displace. We are using a remap, and we are basically displacing the map, which defines how our texture is distributed on our canvas, which is the thing the image we are using. I'm referring to it as the canvas, and every canvas has a kind of map, which is usually looking like this green red thing. Maybe 3D people are familiar with UV maps and what it means. And yeah, instead of having a kind of displace image, we are just displacing the distribution of our thing, and this gives us some kind of different options than a regular displacement. And yeah, I want to mention that I learned the technique by Pakata12, who is a great person and does very great tutorials, which are a little bit more advanced than mine, and also coming from a kind of mathematical way, I feel like it at least, because he does kind of really cool stuffs which I can't explain. And okay, enough talking about that, and just know that you definitely have to have a look at Pakata12's tutorials. And yeah, so let's get started. I already have my file here, and I also placed the UV reorder we are going to build right now here, so you can just use it for your palette, so you just don't have to rebuild it every time you want to use it, because this UV reorder thing is pretty cool to use from time to time. So you might know I changed my default file setup, and instead of the normal file and my normal constant, I also brought in a grid constant in here as a fourth constant, and this grid will define our grid from the grid displacement. So I added that. Okay, so first of all we are going to build our reorder, our UV reorder and for that we are going to start with a ramp. First of all, let's use our reference resolution, and then we need to change the pixel mode from 8-bit fixed RGBA to 32-bit float mono. This is pretty important that it is mono, because we just need the black and the white. And then we bring in the reorder, and then we will use a flip, and we change the flop to bottom left, so we flip it, and then we use this as the second input. Then we change the pixel format, because we want color in here, to 32-bit float RGBA, but the output for the green we change to the second input. And since we don't want any blue in here, we just want it to be green and red, which is, I don't know, the colors for the distribution. And once again, 3D people might be familiar with it. And then we change the output from blue to 0. And then we have our UV map. So, oops. Then I will use a null just to keep it clean. And now we will bring in the image we want to displace. So I am using a movie file. Oops. Where is it? Yeah, here. And I will use a fit. And copy my mother resolution. Paste the reference. And actually I will use my type assets here. But some of you messaged me because they have an issue with this assets and have this yellow arrow thing here, and that's because these are assets I created by myself and which are based on my computer locally and not inside of Touchdesigner, and you get that yellow arrow because you don't have the file for it. So in the end I will connect this movie file, and you could just change the path in here for whatever image you want to displace. So to explain that error you always get. So okay, so we bring in a remap, not a reorder, a remap, because we changed the map. And then this will be just like in a displacement. The first input is the image you want to displace, and the second input is the image you want to displace with. So then I will connect this one to a null, so we can see what's going on. And right now there's nothing going on, which is totally normal because we just rebuild the same UV map this is already using. So now let's bring in our grid, and we will bring in the grid by using a noise. But this time we don't use the mother reference here because we want it to be a grid. So we use this number I already defined inside of my constant, this 5, as a resolution for our noise. So just do that. And then we need to change the viewer smoothness, which defines the way those pixels are shown. Just right now we have this blurry thing because it's smoothing out the edges of the colors we have. So if we change this from interpolate pixels to nearest pixel, we kind of get an average of every color we have in here, or every gray scale we have in here. So now we need to combine our UV map with this. So I'm going to use an add for it, or maybe let's use a composite because the operation modes really have a different effect and it's kind of nice to change them sometimes. So if we use this, you can already see we get some changes, but right now I will change the operation mode to add. And then you can see this is ugly, and this is because we need to make some changes. First of all, right now we have different resolutions on here and here. So we need to bring this grid we have here onto the same scale we have here. So I will use this fit here, copy it, combine it here. So we scale this noise up to this. And also you can see now we have this interpolated thing again. So we need to change the smoothness inside of the fit as well. So just change it from input smoothness to nearest pixel and also the viewer smoothness to nearest pixel. So this is looking way better now, but it's still ugly. So we still have this kind of pixelated font, and this is because we have different pixel formats for this and that. So we also need to change this inside of the noise. So change the pixel mode from 80-bit fixed to 32-bit float RGBA. So now we cleared out our font. And then we need to make some changes to our noise, because right now it's displacing too much, so it's too heavy, and Now comes the fun. So first of all, we bring down the amplitude to null and also the offset. So you can see we have this black thing, which gives us back our usual UV map. So if we make really small changes to the amplitude and the offset, we get the kind of displacement I have shown in the beginning. So just remember, really go slow with these numbers, because if you go too heavy, you have a heavy displacement, which is a little bit too heavy. So you can already see we have this small and kind of nice displacement, but you can also see we have our transparency showing through, and this is because inside of the remap, just like in every other displacement, we need to change the extend mode. So right now it's 0, which causes the transparency. So if you just change it to repeat, it repeats the pixels from the edges. So this is fixed, and now when I play this, nothing happens because we don't have anything moving in here. So to bring in the movement, we need to animate the noise, which we will do by our apps time.seconds. So I don't remember if I explained it the last time, because someone asked me how I plugged in the apps time.seconds, and I gave an answer, but I think I gave the wrong answer, or not the wrong, but I think I misunderstood your confusion. I use my apps time.seconds inside of my constant, so I don't have to type it every time I use it. So I just gave you the answer to just type in apps time.seconds, but it's way easier if you use it inside of a constant. Just like I typed here apps time.seconds, and then you can just export this every time you want to use it, and you don't have to type it every time. So this is way easier than typing it every time. So, okay, enough about that. And then I use this apps time on the X, the Y, or the Z. I'm usually going with the Z. And just drop the reference. And now we have our movement. Right now it's a little bit too heavy, and that's because the apps time.seconds is too heavy. So I divide it by 3. And then we have this really smooth stuff happening. So if you want to change anything of this displacement, you have to do it inside of this noise. And for example, if you change the exponent, this is happening. If you change the amplitude really heavy, it's getting really heavy in here. If you change the offset, so the offset gets heavier. So the offset of the grid we have. But I'm leaving it at null because I really like it like this, and I also will keep this really, really low. Maybe a little bit heavier, but just go slow with those numbers, but just explore inside of it. There's a lot of stuff going on. If you have the harmonics heavy, it's ugly. If you have them low, it's smooth. So, okay. So basically that's the technique we want to use. So if you want to have more grid, just change the number of your constant. So you could just, I don't know, if you want this kind of pixely look, if you, I don't know, want a really small grid, then you could just maybe make the exponent heavier. Yeah, so this is also pretty powerful. I might keep it at 5 right now. And yeah, that's the basic technique about this. And now I will show some ways which I explored are also pretty cool. So the first thing to always try, if you don't want these edges to be this hard and you want it to be a little bit smoother, just bring in a blur after the comp. So it smooths out the edges, of course. So you have this kind of, I don't know, looking glass effect. And I would just make this a little bit heavier so we actually see a little bit more of what's going on. So yeah, using that blur is always a one to go with. But another great thing I found out, or I didn't found it out, I just came up with it and I liked it. And so if you use another comp and use this basic UV map we are using inside of a transform, and use it here, you get another kind of displacement. So if you use, for example, if you rotate this, so just use the abs time again instead of the rotation, and maybe make it a little bit heavier, just like, let's go heavy with 100. So you get some kind of displacement in here, and if you change the, instead of tile, the extend mode to maybe mirror, you get this kind of displacement in here, but you can see we have this things showing through, so you might want to bring in a transform in here again and bring in a background. So we're getting rid of the transparency, and yeah, so we have this grid combined with another displacement, which is cool. And so you could make some changes inside of that transform, which cause some cool things. So for example, if we bring out the rotation again and just translate it, you get this stuff going on. This changes a lot from changing the extend mode. So if you use repeat, you get this kind of thing swiping through. If you use the mirror, you get this kind of like time displacement look. I don't know. It's a little bit like this. If you use the blur again, you get it kind of smoother. And so playing around with the translate could be cool. And also maybe the scale. So you have more grid inside of a grid. So this is also more for some kind of glitch and distortion. Could be cool if you want to use it. I kind of like it. And another thing we could bring in is, let's use a displace inside of this and displace it by my basic noise, maybe. So then make it a little bit not so heavy. So maybe like this. And once again, right now I think this pixel look is kind of cool. But if you don't want it, change the pixel mode. So unmatching pixel modes always have some kind of pixel look as a result. So if we animate that noise again, I really love what we are getting. So we have this grid, but also stuff happening inside of the grid and kind of displaced within the grid. And pretty cool. So if you just divide it by 3 again, it's a little bit softer. If you change the exponent a little bit, once again, totally different stuff. If you use this, like this, totally different. If you change the operation mode inside of this comp to maybe overlay, or I don't know, maybe add, everything kind of changes. And yeah, I don't really have to explain everything. So the noises inside of this techniques are really powerful. So if you play with them, you get the total different stuff going on. So yeah, basically that's everything I had to show within this technique, and I hope you enjoyed this little re-recording. I hope you will forgive me for my fails, and I'm very thankful for the support I'm getting, and keep an eye on my December special, and have fun, stay creative, stay kind, and stay healthy, and I don't know what I wanted to say in the end, so bye bye.